Joining us right now, Executive Vice President and General Manager Nick Caserio. Nick, congratulations on winning the division. I know we have a lot of football to talk about, but macro, this is a big deal. Back-to-back. I know it's not the ultimate goal, but it's a big one.
Yeah, sure. It's a great accomplishment for the organization, great accomplishment for the players and the coaches. Everybody's put a lot of work and time and effort to get to this point. So the best thing about it is we've given ourselves an opportunity here to continue playing once the regular season is over. So that's all you can really ask for. We've talked about on the show the importance of December football, at least being in a position to at least have an opportunity to continue playing. And we're fortunately in that position. So it's always good to win. Anytime you have an opportunity to win a division and kind of clinch it at home, certainly carries a little bit more weight. So we're certainly excited. I know the players are excited about the opportunity in front of us, but we still have 3 games to go here. So hopefully we can play good football and kind of finish this out the right way.
Okay, I'm going to move a little bit closer to Mark when I ask this question.
Uh-oh.
The next 3 weeks, have you guys talked about how you handle it? How do you go about it? Have you kind of talked about, because obviously this is a tricky one between the game on Saturday, game on Wednesday, and then the Titans. Have you kind of talked about that? Hey, we got the division. You thought about that or talked about that or looked ahead?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just focusing on Kansas City and then just figuring out what we have to do to get ourselves ready to play. We'll go through the injury evaluation, who's available, who's not available.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's about being ready to go against Kansas City on the road against a good football team.
Right.
Who there's an opportunity we could potentially see them again here at some point. So I think the focus is just on this game, what we got to do. We lose a day here with a short week, leaving Friday for the game on Saturday. So I think we're kind of one day at a time, one game at a time, keep the focus on Kansas City, which is where it should be.
Let's talk about the defensive performance against the Dolphins. We sat here last week talking about all their speed, the screen passes, the eye candy, whatever you want to call it, and the defense handled it so well.
Yeah, we did a great job, played really disciplined. I think the one thing that stood out, aside from the takeaways yesterday, was just the tackling and limiting the space. So there was a number of examples of if you had to set the perimeter of the defense, force the ball back inside to the cavalry, and we talk about those guys running to the football, swarming to the football, running out of the stack. And there were multiple examples when you stopped the film. You had 5 or 6 jerseys in the picture. So we talked about that before the game. That's what it was going to take, and we saw multiple examples of that. And anytime you play a team like that plays in space, where if you don't get them down, you got to make sure that you have second and third level. And the players did a really good job of that. So that's probably one of the things that, outside of the takeaways, that really stood out with the game.
I think one of my favorites, Nick, was when Malik Washington caught a screen, and it looked like he was starting to break it out of there. And Tommy Togiai recognized it and started sprinting downfield. And I'm not sure if Kalen would have made a tackle, but Tommy ends up making a tackle. It's a 10-yard game, but he slips that tackle at Kalen, and Tommy is loafing or not running. That's going to the house.
No, and that was kind of near their sideline. But we talked about having screen awareness. So if the lineman gives you a cue, you recognize the play, you got to turn and run. And Washington's a fast guy. So for Tommy to make that play, I mean, he was involved in the play, but we had a couple of defenders near the ball. I mean, that certainly was a big play, no question about it.
Yeah. Well, the edge rushers for the Texans really did a good job. Will knocking the ball out. Daniil had that very clutch sack. What about the pass rush?
Yeah, we talked about trying to disrupt the timing of the quarterback there, and we always didn't get to him, but we did. There were a number of plays. I mean, Settle forced a number of holding penalties as well, and even on the strip sack, Autry powered the right guard and then forced the quarterback to retreat out the back door, and then Will came around and knocked the ball off. So pass rush is about a coordinated effort amongst 4 or 5, depending on how much you're rushing, and there were a number of examples of good pass rush coordination, and then some players winning individually. If Daniil's sack, I mean, he basically did his spin move, and the right tackle essentially didn't touch him. There's always a number of factors, that go into rush. It's rush and coverage, but the front deserves a lot of credit for how we rushed the right way according to the rush plan.
Okay, so I can ask this question because this is per my contract.
Right.
Kamari Lassiter, I remember, was drafted.
Yeah.
Kalen Bullock was drafted.
Yes, correct.
Derek Stingley was drafted.
Correct.
All by you. Yeah, right.
By the organization.
By the organization. But those 3 guys have come up with a number of interceptions. The ball hawk nature, Nick, there's so many things we've talked about with those defensive backs over the last couple of years. And then this year with Kalen and with Kamari, we've talked about, their willingness to come and tackle and make those plays. But the way they attack the football, I would imagine that's something obviously that you studied and looked at a lot. But now it's coming really to fruition with the number of times they take it away.
Yeah, and it's the viewpoint's always kind of different. So corners playing the ball and attacking the ball is different than how safeties play the ball. Safeties usually playing it from top down with the ball in front of you and having vision of the quarterback. A corner, there's plenty of times where your back is to the quarterback when you're not playing off coverage and driving and breaking on the ball. So we've seen Derek make a number of plays like he did yesterday. I'm not sure quite to the extent like the one at the end of the game, but just the ability to turn and find the ball. And then at safety, you're reading a quarterback and reacting to the throw, and you want to make sure that you take the right angle. And a lot of times it's being able to finish the play with the interception. Kalen has really good hands, and we talked about this going back to the spring and even the draft. That was one of the things that stood out about him. And even Kamari, he's gotten his hands on the ball as well. I would put Kamari up there as good of a tackling corner as there is in the league. I mean, the way he forces, the way he supports, the violence, the urgency. And I would say to Sting's credit as well, Sting has really improved as a tackler, and there were multiple examples in the game. So, we lose sight of the highlight reel plays on the ball, but he had a number of really strong tackles, run force, crack replace tackles, which if he doesn't make that play, the ball carrier is going to gain extra yards.
Yeah, first play of the game. First play of the game gets a TFL. I want to say there was a stat that our PR department put out that said 2 TFLs, 2 interceptions. I don't know. I mean,
first time in history.
First time in history.
If our PR department put it out there, they're probably right.
Yeah, they're right. No, they're right. But
it's
it's a credit to them putting it out there, but it's a credit to Sting too. 2 TFLs and 2 picks in the same game, and that's pretty nice.
That is awesome. All right, speaking of awesome, I'm going full Chris Farley here as well. To get Christian Harris back, I mean, that was great at a big time when you needed him, and it wasn't like he played every single snap, but it felt like he was out there an awful lot.
He was out there a lot. He was prepared. He was excited. He was ready to go, and he made a difference in the game. I think he had 8 tackles. Henry had 11 tackles. So between the two of them, you're talking about guys, linebackers at 20 some odd to almost 20 tackles. But it's always good to have good players on the football field, and Christian has shown that he's one of our better football players. His speed, his urgency, his ability to close and cover shows up. It's great to have him back, and hopefully he felt decent when he woke up after the game, but might have played a few more snaps than we had anticipated. But to his credit, I mean, he did a great job with his opportunities.
Yeah, so going forward with Christian, because he played for 13 weeks, because I asked him that, how do you feel? Just kind of, what do you feel? How do you feel? And he goes, we'll find out tomorrow, that day after. But when you have so many games in a small span, do you look at his snaps and what he can do a little differently, Nick, because he hasn't played for a long time?
The big thing is just kind of go through the week. How are they recovering? How do they feel physically? Where's their mindset? Do they have any limitations? So understanding there's a little bit of a ramp up that's required. Yeah. So you play, say, back-to-back games of 65, 70, 80 plays, could catch up with you. So we'll monitor it, and ultimately we'll do what we feel is best for the players.
Yep.
All right, offensively, running game, not what you wanted it to be, but the passing game, opportunistic, able to get the 2 TDs and score when you really needed to.
Yeah, a good example of complementary football, able to take kind of the short fields and convert those into scoring plays. So I think we were 2 or 3 in the red area. We really only played the area. The time we got stopped was there at the end of the half, kind of that after the Kalen turnover. But able to convert the first turnover into a touchdown and convert Dare's fake punt into a touchdown. So anytime you can convert with touchdowns in the scoring zone, that's going to make a difference, and those end up being difference making plays in the game.
Move Titus over left guard. Blake Fisher moves out to right tackle. What'd you think of that configuration, Nick? And how did you think after you watched the film that offensive lineman and the offensive line played?
Yeah, overall they did a pretty solid job. So a couple of times, where the play was extended and the rush was extended. So credit to Miami for Chop kind of came out of the back door in a few of those. But overall, I mean, there was a number of plays where the pocket was clean. We had opportunity to throw the football. Blake did a pretty solid job. Played firm, played physical and pass protection. Like I said, Chop got around him, 1 or 2 times, but Chop's a really good edge rusher. So, but overall, that group played a real solid football game, and they're a big reason why we were able to move the ball offensively.
You mentioned with players' snaps and such, you see how they feel during the week and that kind of thing, but the good teams are going to play in the primetime games, and you have some experience with these short weeks against the Jets and after the Dallas game, so that's got to help everybody as far as the support staff and the players to get ready for this.
Yeah, in some respects, we're battle-tested. So even going back to what it was week 2 or 3 when we played Chicago on Sunday night, we've played on Monday night, we played Thursday night. So we kind of had to deal with the alternative schedule. It's not perfect for the players. I'm sure if you ask the players, they like the routine, kind of staying on schedule. But we're able to adjust and adapt and modify as we go, which that's what it takes this time of year. So whatever we got to do to get the team ready to go, that's where the focus will be.
Yeah, we like the routine too. Yeah. Matching up practice with radio. It's all good. Okay. Behind us, good win. Win the AFC South. Fantastic. Excellent. The Chiefs are coming up. going to a place where we've had some bad luck there lately. But now we're facing
Not
maybe
lately, a long time ago,
a long
Johnny.
time ago.
Long time ago.
5 years. It's a blink of an eye. Anyway, Patrick Mahomes banged up a little bit. Don't know. But the Chiefs, teams won a lot of games. Only lost one. Went and beat the Browns yesterday. Biggest margin, I think, all year. Your thoughts in the scouting report on Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, this is one of the best organizations in football, top to bottom, starting with Hunt ownership group and what they've done. And if you're talking about a team that has arguably 4 Hall of Fame people or players, starting with Coach Reed. Talk about Patrick, he'll be in the Hall of Fame. Chris Jones, he'll be in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Travis Kelce, he'll be in the Hall of Fame. So you're talking about peak performers, essentially every level, who have been very consistent. There's a reason that they've won 3 Super Bowls. I mean, Coach Reed is as good a coach in all of sport. Him and Brett Veach, they do a great job of constructing the team. And they've had to make some adjustments and changes year to year based on their personnel. Everything offensively starts with Patrick. There's nobody like him. He's so unique. He's obviously very talented and very skilled, but he's very, very tough. And I think when you look at their team and what the games that they've been involved in, they've been in one-score game essentially every week.
Yep.
And he's made winning plays in the fourth quarter, which is what great players do. They make winning plays when the game is on the line. So obviously everything starts with him. We'll see kind of where he is physically. We're preparing for him to play. If he doesn't play, then it'll be Wentz. But Patrick is as skilled and unique a player as there's in the league. And the offensive line, it's really about the 3 inside players, with Creed Humphrey at center, with Smith at right guard, and Joe Tooney, who we had experience with in New England. Tooney actually had a kick out to left tackle the other day against Cleveland because they've had some tackle issues. Right tackle have kind of been consistent with Taylor, but left tackle, they've kind of rotated some guys in and out. They've had multiple backs in there. It's been Hunt. It's been Pacheco. Kelsey's been there all year. The guy that's kind of really emerged a little bit in that second tight end role is Noah Gray. He's really added a lot to their offense. And they've lost some receivers to injury, but they traded for D-Hop. Marquise Brown could potentially be back. They've used Worthy, Justin Watson. So they have a collection of players offensively, and they know how to play. And Patrick can do things that not a lot of quarterbacks can do. And then defensively, I mean, Spags is as good a defensive coordinator probably in the history of the game, like going back to his time with the Giants and what he's done with his defense. This is a very, very good defensive team. I mean, they're winning because of their offense, but they've won as many games on defense as well. And everything starts with Chris Jones, wherever they line him up. His defensive tackle, he's a defensive end. He's an absolute game wrecker. And he's been one of the best defensive players for a number of years now. But between him and Carl Loftus, they got good players on the front. Amenahu's given them some good snaps coming back off the injury here on the edge. And then a linebacker, Bolton is probably an underrated player that not a lot of people talked about, but his leadership, his toughness, he plays physical. This is a very physical defense. And in the secondary, I'd say McDuffie is as good of a corner that there is in the league, can go in, can go out. And then on the other side, they've kind of had multiple players that they played opposite him. And at safety, it's kind of been Justin and Cook for the most part. And Justin's really done a nice job. Justin Reed's done a really good job for them since they acquired him and they signed him away from us there, however many years ago that was. So they play a lot of people. They present a lot of problems for the offense. It's a very attacking, very aggressive, play with a very aggressive mindset. They're going to pressure you. They're going to play physical, and they're creating a lot of negative plays. And in a kicking game, Coach Taub has done a really good job in the return game. Good punter, Reza has done a good job for them. They've had to use multiple kickers. So this is a team that, regardless of who's playing, has found a way to win. So you can't have nothing but respect for a team that goes about their business that way.
Nick, you faced Andy Reid, organizations you've been involved with. This one, we had a matchup with them a couple of years ago. But also in your previous life with the Patriots, Super Bowl against the Eagles, an AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. How has Andy Reid evolved as a head coach? He's one of the very best, and he's chasing Don Shula's record as much as Belichick was.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the great coaches have the ability to adjust and adapt kind of on a year-to-year basis. So the way they were constructed when Andy first took over, however many years ago that was, to where they are now, I mean, everybody wants to say, well, it's pigeonhole off. Well, it's a West Coast offense. This is what it is. Well, it's the Chiefs offense, and they've kind of taken what they do and made some adjustments and incorporated some concepts that are comfortable for Patrick or that accentuate the skills of their players. But Coach Reed is as good of a coach as there is in professional sports. And each year they kind of look at their team, try to figure out what they need to do to be successful. And then they're very consistent. Coach Reed runs a very rigorous training camp. I'm sure he has D'Amico about it. He'll tell you. But they put a lot of stress and tax the players and are very demanding, but they put them in positions where when they have to go out there and perform in critical situations, they're ready for it. So Coach Reed, he's won wherever he's been, and he's as good of a coach as there is in the league.
To beat them, obviously slowing down Patrick Mahomes, what are a few absolutes against Patrick Mahomes? Like, you can't allow this. You can't do this because Patrick will respond with this. What are some of the absolutes that you just cannot do against him and expect to win?
Yeah, as best you can. The rush has to be disciplined because you can't let him out of the pocket where he can kind of create and make some loose plays. So he's more athletic than people give him credit for. Maybe he's not to the extent of Josh Allen and Lamar, but he has a way of just navigating around things. And you just got to try to, take away certain plays, but understanding, like, he's going to make plays. Yeah. He's going to make throws. And if you can force him into a turnover or get the ball off of him, like, those are things if you can do it. But, I mean, Patrick has probably seen just about every coverage and every defense. And like I said a little bit earlier, he just makes winning plays in the most critical situation. And he's as mentally and physically tough probably as any player at that position, which is why he's going to be in a Hall of Fame one day.
Nick, officials, I'm not going to get you fined or anything, but officiating, is it kind of like umpires in baseball with a different strike zone? They look for different things or emphasize certain things. The rules are the same, but different crews have different styles, if you will, of calling a game?
They are, and officiating is difficult because the way things happen, they happen at a high rate of speed, and it happen very quick. And if you don't have your eyes fixated in one particular spot, then maybe you miss it or don't see it as cleanly as you would have hoped. So the fouls are the fouls, the ones you got to call, and then there's a little bit of a subjective element. So you just have to have an understanding of how the crew is going to call the game. And there's been a lot of turnover on the official front as well. So some of it is learning some of the nuances associated with the game. So officials have a hard job. We understand that. I think the big thing from our perspective is just make sure we have a reasonable explanation of what happened and then can kind of get the information from the league. This way, it's all about being able to teach and train our players so we can coach them the appropriate way.
Nick, we know they've got a ton of offensive weapons. You mentioned them, future Hall of Famers, throw Hopkins in the mix. What's Xavier Worthy given to this offense?
Yeah, no, he's been productive. They've tried to incorporate him from the beginning of the season, so kind of get the ball in his hands. I mean, he's probably one of the fastest players in the NFL, so he's he's definitely a space player where if he gets some open space, like, he can go. But he can still run routes. So even though he's kind of a smaller player, like he's tough for his size. I'd say in some respects he and Tank have some similarities. Yep. But they've definitely tried to incorporate him. I think it'll be interesting to see if they do get Hollywood Brown back, how that affects their offense here a little bit. But they've lost Rasheed. Rasheed was a big part of their offense. Yep. Rasheed was in a kind of an emerging young player. So unfortunately they lost him. But Hop's been able to kind of find a little bit of a niche. They have Worthy, so they kind of use all their skill players. And then going back, the whole tight end position, everybody knows about Kelsey. Not everybody really talks or knows about Gray, but Patrick has a lot of faith and trust in Noah Gray as much as anybody.
You mentioned Tank. It's interesting. Tank returning punts can make plays that way. Had that carry yesterday. And also with Dameon Pierce returning kickoffs, you have two playmakers. There are only so many opportunities in a game on offense, so you get the ball in their hands to make plays, right?
Yeah, try to find ways to get the ball in players' hands that can make plays. So those two players have shown the ability to do it. DP's had multiple kickoff returns, and even on offensively going back to the toss play against New England. And then Tank did a good job making, 43 for 45 or whatever it was on the punt returns. Had the reverse for 15, 20 yards. Had a couple other catches for first down. So anytime we can get the ball in the hands of players like that and they can do something with it, certainly going to make a difference.
Nick, felt like Sunday was a special teams day, minus the offside on field goal, but it felt like in every aspect, felt like the cover teams were really good. You got a return game out of Tank, then obviously the fake punt. Special teams seemed to be at a really high on Sunday.
Yeah, players take a lot of pride in those units. There's no question about it. And, Frank and Will put a lot of time into that. The players understand the importance of the kicking game. We're fortunate to have really three really good specialists and then have some other players that are involved in the core. And then we talked about the returners here a little bit. But Tommy, over the last month or so, has really punted the ball very, very well and given us a number of punts to cover. And then Boyd has done a nice job, whether it's been Boyd or Kadar, or different players at Gunner, going down there and being disruptive and kind of forcing the offenses to play from a long field. So field position is always critical, kind of controlling that element of the game. And then we made a few plays there in the return game, and then the fake punt was ended up being probably the difference in the game.
Nick, for entertainment purposes only, Indiana or Notre Dame Friday night?
Ooh.
I'm kidding.
Ooh.
I'm kidding. But this is
Pendergast would kill me, so I'll say Notre Dame.
sounds good. All right, one more for you. All right, it's the holiday season. Christmas is coming, and we have this 3 games in 11 days situation going on. What did coaches and football personnel do before online shopping? How did you guys get this done? This is absolutely nuts.
It's funny you asked that, Mark. So I think I'll just speak for myself. So Friday is typically a little bit of an earlier, lighter day.
Yeah.
So if you can carve out some time, maybe on the Friday afternoon,
Right.
and do some Christmas shopping. And then over the bye week, try to be judicious with my time. So did some Christmas shopping there. Took our
There you
daughters
go.
for some shopping so they could shop for each other and for their mother, most importantly.
Yeah.
So, and then online shopping always makes a difference as well. So if you get stuck, but nobody's going to the mall for 2 hours and going to be rolling through the aisles. Maybe you are, John.
Not
but-
me. I beg to differ, but I remember a few years ago there was Texans. We played at Indianapolis, and they're connected to that mall. I saw at least 3 or 4 employees getting Christmas shopping done and had bags of stuff they were taking back on the
They
plane.
must have shipped it back.
I don't know that Kansas City's got a mall, but
There's
last-minute
always something
shopping.
for the last minute shoppers.
There's always something last minute shoppers.
Nick, thanks a lot. Good luck.
Thanks, fellas.